Lewis Hamilton finished fourth in the sole Friday practice session at Zandvoort, just 0.190 seconds behind championship leader Kimi Antonelli. Through that opening running, Ferrari looked balanced and stable, with no visible weakness in the car's performance. Hours later, the picture changed completely. Hamilton finished seventh in sprint qualifying, more than half a second off his own teammate. The central question heading into the weekend was not whether the SF-26 had the pace to compete at the front. The question was why Hamilton could not access that pace when it mattered. George Russell took pole position in sprint qualifying with a time of 1 minute and 11.567 seconds. Lando Norris finished second, 0.041 seconds off the pace. Charles Leclerc was third, just 0.055 seconds behind Russell, setting a lap of 1 minute and 11.622 seconds that he described as one of his best of the season. Oscar Piastri placed fourth, 0.099 seconds off pole. Antonelli finished fifth after running through the gravel during SQ1, though no floor damage was confirmed as a result of that excursion. Max Verstappen took sixth. Hamilton crossed the line seventh, with a time of 1 minute and 12.191 seconds, which put him 0.624 seconds off pole and 0.569 seconds behind Leclerc. The gap between the two Ferrari drivers did not appear all at once. During SQ1 and SQ2, Hamilton was competitive with Leclerc, running at a similar pace on the medium compound tires. Reports from the session indicate Hamilton was ahead of or level with Leclerc through those medium tire phases. The gap only opened once the soft tires were fitted for SQ3. At that point, the car's underlying weakness, which had been hidden at lower demand, became exposed once the drivers pushed to the absolute limit on the softer compound. Hamilton addressed the session directly afterward, offering a specific explanation that tied his morning form to a change made to the car later in the day. His comments were direct: "It wasn't a good session, unfortunately. It is what it is. Practice felt good, and we made some subtle tweaks to the car, but when we got into sprint qualifying, it was a completely different car. So we need to understand what went wrong, and then we'll do our best tomorrow." This statement forms the through line of the entire weekend. Hamilton was quick in FP1. A setup adjustment was made afterward. By sprint qualifying, the car behaved differently for him. Specifically, team principal Frédéric Vasseur offered his own account of the session, and his language confirmed that the issue was isolated rather than systemic. Vasseur said, "Today Charles delivered a good performance, qualifying just a few hundredths off pole. It was a very good lap in which he was able to put everything together." The session proved more difficult for Lewis after a very strong start in free practice this morning. He didn't manage to put a good lap together in SQ3, and we need to work on the balance of the car to do better tomorrow. Vasseur's statement never described the SF-26 itself as lacking pace. Instead, it isolated the problem to Hamilton's side of the garage and to the car's balance specifically, rather than to any deficiency in the chassis or power unit shared by both drivers. Leclerc's session provides the clearest contrast available from the weekend. He drove the same chassis, with the same package, and produced the opposite result. Leclerc was comfortable throughout Friday's running and called his sprint qualifying lap his best of the 2026 season. The fact that one driver could extract a near pole position lap from the car while his teammate lost more than half a second supports the argument that this was a setup sensitivity issue rather than a hard ceiling on the car's overall pace. Ferrari's package clearly had the ceiling to compete near the front. The SF26 did not need new outright pace to prove that. What separated the two drivers was how each car responded to the setup applied to it. The technical background to the weekend explains why subtle adjustments carried outsized risk. Ferrari introduced an upgrade package at Zandvoort covering the floor edge, the diffuser, the board, and the lower beam wing. The intent behind the package was straightforward: generate more downforce and improve airflow into the diffuser. Under a sprint weekend format, teams are given only one practice session to evaluate any new component before qualifying locks in results that count toward the race weekend. That single FP1 session was Ferrari's only opportunity to assess how the new floor and diffuser components interacted with each car's setup before sprint qualifying began. This compressed development window is the mechanical reason behind why a small setup change, of the kind teams make routinely between sessions, could produce such a large swing in one car's balance. The characteristics of the Zandvoort circuit magnify this kind of sensitivity more than most other tracks on the calendar. The layout is high-speed, features heavily banked corners, and is notably narrow compared to other circuits. These conditions demand a high level of driver confidence in the front and rear balance of the car in order to commit fully through the corners. A driver who does not have that confidence does not lose time in one specific spot. Instead, the time loss compounds across several linked corners, since banked, high-speed sections punish hesitation more severely than tighter, lower-speed layouts. Sky Sports commentator Timo Glock offered a brief assessment along these lines, stating that the difference between Leclerc and Hamilton stemmed from the different car balance each driver experienced, and that without complete confidence in the car at Zandvoort, a driver cannot fully commit to the limit. Ferrari's options heading into Saturday were limited by the sport's technical regulations. Park firm rules lock in a car's setup once qualifying has concluded, meaning Ferrari cannot make major mechanical changes to Hamilton's car before the sprint race itself. Whatever change caused the shift in Hamilton's balance between FP1 and sprint qualifying would need to be understood by the team, even if it could not be reversed before the race. Elsewhere in the paddock, Verstappen, who out-qualified Hamilton in the session, made a light-hearted comment about finally beating one car from a top team. The result carries direct weight for the 2026 championship battle. Hamilton currently sits second in the Drivers' Championship standings, 50 points behind leader Antonelli. On the constructors' side, Ferrari trails Mercedes by 72 points. This Zandvoort weekend marked Ferrari's first race back from the summer break, a point in the calendar typically viewed as an opportunity to build momentum into the closing stretch of the season. Instead of closing gaps in both championships, the session reopened a question that has followed the SF26 for much of the year: whether the car operates within too narrow a setup window, rewarding drivers who find the right balance immediately while punishing those who do not. The session-by-session breakdown makes clear this was not the product of a single mistake or one poorly executed lap. Hamilton's pace through SQ1 and SQ2 on the medium tires was close to, and at times ahead of, Leclerc's. The divergence appeared specifically when the soft compound went on for the final phase of sprint qualifying, the exact moment when a car's balance issues are hardest to mask. That timing lines up directly with Hamilton's own account of a car that felt different than it had in FP1, following the tweaks made between sessions. It also lines up with Vasseur's account, which placed the difficulty specifically in SQ3 and specifically on the balance side of the equation, not on outright pace. Taken together, the Friday practice result, the sprint qualifying gap, Hamilton's own quote, Vasseur's quote, and Leclerc's mirror image session point toward the same conclusion from separate directions. The SF-26, following its Zandvoort upgrade to the floor edge, diffuser, board, and lower beam wing, appears capable of extracting a near-pole lap, as Leclerc demonstrated. It also appears capable of losing more than half a second when its balance is not precisely matched to a driver's needs, as Hamilton experienced. With only one practice session available to evaluate the new components before a sprint weekend locks in results, and with Zandvoort's banked, narrow layout offering little forgiveness for a driver lacking full confidence in the car, the conditions were set for exactly the kind of split result Ferrari produced. Heading into Saturday's sprint race, under park-firm restrictions that prevent further setup changes, Ferrari's task is to understand what shifted in Hamilton's car between FP1 and SQ3, even without the ability to fix it before the lights go out.